Hello all, it's Loxton. So I've started up my Ultimate Crossover web series again, finally, after lying dormant for too long. But it's finally starting off again with a good enough bang, getting right back into it with the Namco timeline, also known as the UGSF timeline. But while working on these, I was thinking, if I had to pick 10 crossover games to represent the crossover subgenre, what would they be? Well, first, what do I mean by crossover subgenre? Well, a game could have a crossover in it, or a game could be about the crossover. For example, Link is in Super Mario RPG, but he's definitely not the focal point of Super Mario RPG, therefore it's a crossover, but Mario RPG is not a crossover game. However, Marvel vs. Capcom, Super Smash Bros., etc. Those are obviously crossover games. So, if I had to pick 10 of them, which 10 would they be? None. And no, fan games do not count. It's really shameful that I even have to say that. Come on. Fan games don't count because they are fan games. They're unofficial. Doy-de-doy. And, by the way, you can find a list to all of these games, as well as my honorable mentions, on my Games Grabber page, which is a site where you can build and manage your game collections, and even save links to buy them later. And just by using the site, you can earn points to redeem for rewards. It's pretty awesome. I have a link in the description for you if this sounds cool to you. Now on with the list. Firstly, spoiler alert, number 1 is Super Smash Bros., because how could it not be? Just In number 10 we have Jump Ultimate Stars, and while this game is Japan exclusive, it's awesome, and I would really love for them to release a future game in the series into the US. Oh wait! Oh, that's not the same gameplay, so it doesn't really count as that. This game is a crossover of many different anime characters, from Dragon Ball to Death Note, Naruto, Bleach, Yu Yu Hakusho, and more. It plays similar to Smash Bros, but definitely has its own flair to it, especially its utilization of the second screen on the DS. You can build a custom manga page on the bottom screen, and tapping the panels gives you different special moves. You can even use this to switch out characters, get help, or just attack stronger. The more space the panels take up, the better they are usually, but that then limits your options. Really, the only thing holding it back is it being a Japan exclusive. So now, on to number 9. And speaking of games similar to Smash, PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale takes the number 9 spot. While the base idea is similar to Smash, just taking a bunch of characters from a bunch of different games and throwing them together in a fighting game that's jumpy and itemsy and more casual than regular fighting games. Except it's Sony instead of Nintendo. But one thing that sets it apart is how you get kills. Rather than just knocking each other off the stage, you build up a meter by attacking, and as the meter fills, you can get a super attack to kill your opponent. And this is the only way to do so. So if you miss that attack, well, you missed a score. And that strange combat system, as well as not quite as polished controls, is definitely the reason why it wasn't nearly as successful as Smash. But it's still a good crossover game. Number 8 goes to Battletoads and Double Dragon. These were two of the most iconic beat-em-ups of the 90s. They were pretty rad, though the only way you could possibly make them any radder would be by combining the two and setting the whole game in space. The gameplay definitely borrows more from Battletoads than it does Double Dragon, but fans of either will find enjoyment here. And lucky number 7 goes to Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright, and really the title kinda says it all. The detective Professor Layton meets up with Phoenix Wright. Both of these story-heavy mystery-solving game styles get merged into one, and there's not really much to say else about it other than that, without getting into spoilers. And again, while not the greatest game in either series, fans of either will enjoy it. And at number 6, I put Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing and its sequel Transformed. Taking the Mario Kart formula and speeding it up, making items not mean as much, and upping the difficulty ceiling, Sonic Racing in some ways is a better kart racer than Mario Kart, at least to more hardcore gamers looking for a greater challenge. Also, rather than being limited to the extended Mario universe, that is until Animal Crossing got involved, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing pulls in characters from all of Sega, even ones you've probably never heard of. There's characters from Golden Axe, Samba de Amigo, Billy Hatcher, and it even throws in some third-party characters like Wreck-It Ralph, Banjo-Kazooie, and Team Fortress 2. as one character. Weird. Number 5, Project X Zone, a tactical turn-based RPG featuring well over 200 characters from many franchises owned by Sega, Capcom, and Namco Bandai. And notably, this is one of the Sakura Wars franchise's final appearances in a game. Fans of tactical RPG games will enjoy this one too, but you know, it's not the greatest tactical RPG by any means. But the fan service and the huge crossoveriness, and just the sheer number of characters, add some replay value. You can experiment around a lot with different character setups. Plus, its sequel throws in Fire Emblem and Xenoblade characters. Pretty cool. Number 4 goes to Pokemon Conquest, and this crossover is weird. You take the Pokemon universe and set it in feudal Japan, and then cross it over with Nobunaga's Ambition, which is a realistic RPG where you command armies and murder villages of people in feudal Japan. But in Pokemon, they're cheery. It can also be noted that the Nobunaga's Ambition characters are also the main characters in Samurai Warriors, so you could even say that Pokemon Conquest is a cross of that as well, which is even stranger to think about. Could you imagine a Pokemon game in the gameplay style of the Warriors series? Just playing as legendary Pokemon and just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With every attack you kill like 4 regular Pokemon, like Pidgeys. So many dead Pidgeys. In number 3 we get King of Fighters, which is a fighting crossover game that is so notable that more people know about it than they do about the games that cross into it. In fact, there are now over 15 King of Fighters games, taking characters from Samurai Showdown, Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, and many other SNK characters. This 2D fighting game is still coming out with new releases, while the games that it brings in are nowhere to be found, or at least very spread out. Number 2, I'm giving to Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Ultimate. The first game in this series was Number 2 brought in the entire roster of Capcom characters and Marvel characters. Well, not the whole thing, that'd be ridiculous. But, you know, they brought in characters from both of their entire company stuff. I can good sentence well, but there were also lots of balancing issues. But now in the third one, it's way more balanced, way more artsy and colorful. To this day, there's still a pretty big competitive scene surrounding this game, and the developers did a much better job reflecting all of the characters' personalities.
I get the cover of the next Street Fighter for this, right, Capcom?
And number 1 is not Smash, actually. I decided I'm gonna give it to Kingdom Hearts instead. I mean, who in their right mind would think that crossing Final Fantasy and Disney would be a good idea that would create a massive franchise with a huge fan base? A genius, apparently. It's an awesome and ever-improving action RPG, and the hype for Kingdom Hearts 3 is real. It has its share of original characters, and even brings in some characters from other games too, such as The World Ends With You. Really, it's a good mix of everything, and I feel like I don't really have to explain what it's all about, because... well, for one, because explaining the plot in detail would take hours. But for 2, because so many people have played it, or at least know about it enough that anything I say will just be like, you'd be like, yeah, I understand. Continue with the video. Where's Smash? And number 0 is Smash. A 0 in a top 10? Loxton, what are you doing? Well, as I was thinking about it, I figured Smash is kind of in a league of its own. Not only did it create its whole smashy subgenre of fighting games that many other games have copied, but also it's kind of the founder of the idea of crossover games in the first place. There were still crossovers in games before Smash, and there were still crossover games before Smash, but Smash, the first one, Super Smash Bros. On the 64, that really set the standard and popularized the idea. It started the whole bring in a bunch of well-known characters together to fight thing, and the amount of fun you can have with any of the games in this series is mind-boggling. That is, if you have friends to play it with. Super Smash Bros. Brawl modded into Brawl Plus has possibly taken more hours out of my life than anything, and Smash 4 is doing similar things to me now. Huh. And there you have it, my picks for the top 11 crossover games. Top 11 is so weird to do. Come on, Nostalgia Critic, it's weird and you know it. Links to all of these games, as well as a list of all of my honorable mentions, are found in the first link in the description. You should go check it out. It's on GamesGrabber, and maybe you could give me a follow on there. It helps out a bunch. And now it's your turn. Let me know down below what some of your favorite crossovers in games are. And stay awesome. Keep using that noggin. It's good for you. Or a game could be about the crossover. For example, Link is in Super Mario RPG. But he's definitely not the focal point of Super Mario RPG, therefore it's a crossover, but Mario RPG is not a crossover game. However, Marvel vs. Capcom, Super Smash Bros., etc. Those are obviously crossover games. Hello all, it's Loxton. So I started up my Ultimate Crossover web series again, finally, after lying dormant for too long. But it's finally starting off again with... So, if I had to pick 10 of them, which 10 would they be? None. And no, fan games do not count. It's really shameful that I even have to say that. Come on. Fan games don't count because they are fan games. They're unofficial. Doy-de-doy. And, by the way, you can find a list to all of these games, as well as my honorable mentions, on my Games Grabber page, which is a site where you can build and manage your game collections, and even save links to buy them later. And just by using the site, you can earn points to redeem for rewards. It's pretty awesome. I have a link in the description for you if this sounds cool to you. Now on with the list. Firstly, spoiler alert, number 1 is Super Smash Bros., because how could it not be? A good enough bang. Getting right back into it with the Namco timeline, also known as the UGSF timeline. But while working on these, I was thinking, if I had to pick 10 crossover games to represent the crossover subgenre, what would they be? Well, first, what do I mean by crossover subgenre? Well, a game could have a crossover in it,